So yeah.
That's encouraging. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm going to turn this over to Catherine, who's going to share with us about this book that she thought could really be useful to homeschool moms. So Catherine, take it away.
All right. Maybe by show of hands, has anybody read the book, The Lazy Genius, or saw her Instagram or podcast or anything? Just curious. All right. I've heard about her for a while, and some friends had sent me things, and I just decided, kind of in that state of getting ready for the school year, and like, I need to figure out how life's going to work. Not just the school part, thought that could be helpful. So I got it from the library, and it's a great library or like Kindle book, because it is one of those where I think you can read it through, take some things from it. You don't necessarily need to keep it and live by it. But I'll give you kind of a cliff notes, a couple of things that I was taking away from it, and give you kind of an idea of what's in it, so you can see it would be something that would help you. The name comes from her idea that you want to be a genius about what matters and lazy about everything else. So that's the lazy genius kind of thing. She said, there was a quote I really liked. She said, "When you care about everything, you do nothing well, which then compels you to try even harder. Welcome to being tired." That spoke to me because I want everything. I want to do everything perfectly. The idea, the main takeaway is you just have to figure out what matters and then own it and embrace that. And I think as homeschool moms, it's great at the beginning of the year for us to ask these questions, to say what matters. Why are you homeschooling? What's your vision? What are your big longer term goals? I know that's on my kind of list to do before I have a mentoring call with someone who's going to be mentoring me. But I would encourage you, with your mentors or just on your own or with your husband, it's easy to do the more urgent things, pick the curriculum, plan the schedule, but having some of those that apply to your homeschooling can really matter. And then how I kind of applied this was I went through our household and my stuff and said, okay, what am I doing? Had two columns. What am I lazy? Where am I lazy? And where am I a genius? Where are my strengths and where am I letting it go? But then with that, to say, okay, what needs to move from one side to the other? Because some of the things that you're quote unquote lazy about, maybe they just need to stay there because they don't matter as much and you can't do everything well. My example with this is the yard. Our yard is a disaster. There are so many weeds in all my garden beds, and I see it all the time when I go by or I'm outside my house. And that was like one of the first things that went on my lazy category. And then I realized, you know what? I'm going to just be okay with that staying there for this season, because maybe me feeding my family and getting on top of laundry and homeschool, and those matter a little more to us right now. So the yard's not going to look great. So that was kind of one of my takeaways. And she had a quote that I really liked. She said, "You can be real when life is in order and when it's falling apart. Life is beautifully both." And I would just encourage everyone here to be proud of the things that you are doing well, that you feel like you're good at, and share that with the other people. If someone posts a question and you have on Facebook or even here, like, be proud of the things you're good about. We can share where we're a mess and need help, and we can also share our strengths. So she goes through and has this list of some of her little mantras that help you kind of be a lazy genius. The first one is decide once. The main point there is that kind of decision fatigue. All those decisions we're making all day are exhausting. So if you can make some big decisions, like I always do this at certain time, or she gave an example, every time we have company, I make this one meal. You don't have to sit down and say, what am I making for dinner? And it keeps you from inviting people over. or making, repeatable lists. I was, one way that I'm going to try to apply this is a seasonal meal plan. I picked out for, we're going to eat these are our meal plans for 4 weeks, and we're going to do that on a repeat for a couple months. And you know what? Yes, we'll be eating some things over and over again, but if I decide once now, it's going to save me from making that decision every night or even once a week. So that's the first one. Then she says, start small. Here's one of her quotes: the smaller the step, the more likely you'll do it. The more you do it, the more you'll keep doing it, making it a meaningful part of your daily rhythm, which I thought is a beautiful encouragement for little small steps. Then she has this ask the magic question, and I posted this as a little teaser on our Facebook group. The magic question is, what can I do now to make life easier later? And she encourages you to put that ahead of some of the more urgent things. There's the urgent to do, but if you can do something there, it's going to make your life easier and less stressful later. So that's a fun one to try to embrace. I think the section I loved the most was live in the season. And she has just beautiful quotes and thoughts to share about embracing kind of what you are, where you are. If you move through a hard season of life without naming what matters and what doesn't, you'll be crushed under the weight of other perspectives and expectations of what your season should be. Living in your season doesn't mean you gloss over where you are and pretend everything is fine and God has a plan and he doesn't give you more than you can handle, and all the other greeting card comments that can feel hollow. Living in your season doesn't mean trying to change everything to make your current circumstances look the way you wish they did. Living in your season means letting your frustrations breathe, but not be in charge. And there's a bunch of other really good stuff in that, because we all have different circumstances and seasons. And sometimes it's a new baby, sometimes it's a pregnancy, a recent move, job loss, a child who's struggling. And I think it's a good thing, for a good reminder. After that, she talks about routines, build the right routines. And this is a really great, it really changed how I thought of routines. A routine is a repeatable act of preparation, not the destination. So the routine is not the destination. I serve the routine, or the routine serves me, not I serve the routine. With our school days, I think that's a great thought. Like the routine, the rhythm, the schedule, whatever it is that's not the destination. The destination is the education of your children, the connecting with them. And it's a helpful reminder for us to think about as we are planning and setting up our routines and starting those things. Then the next section was set house rules. And the big insight I took from that was, you look where things are falling apart. So where's that moment where you are prone to protect or withdraw or get angry or blame others? That's everything falling apart, and you trace backwards and what's the domino that set that off, and that's where you need a rule. An example in our home was, my husband got so stressed one night cleaning up the kitchen, and it was because the trash was to overflow, brimming, and he was trying to empty a vacuum in it, and then realized there were maggots in the vacuum because of food that had been vacuumed up. And it was just like, this was a disgusting, frustrating thing that slowed down the whole kitchen cleanup process. The insight from this book was, trace that back and say, okay, where do we need the rule? Okay, the rule needs to be, the kid whose chore it is to take the trash out needs to be done every day. So then we have a trash can that has capacity when we need it. And then we need to not vacuum up wet stuff that causes maggots. That would be another good rule. So when you're thinking through rules, what can help, then the last ones are really quick, or at least they felt quicker for me. She said to let people in was one of her big things. Ask for help maybe before you're in crisis mode. And I think that's a great reminder for this group. let people in, ask for help. And she had some practical things. Batching was one of her ways of practically attacking some of the chores in the house, or essentializing. Talked about going in the right order. And you can go and check the book out if you want some of her practical ways to handle all of your tasks. The last 2 points I just thought would be 2 more things to summarize for you all. Schedule rest. I think moms need to hear that. Homeschool moms schedule rest. And her encouragement was to think of different kinds of rhythms of rest. Your seasonal rest, like, can you have a day to yourself once a quarter or something? Ask your husband for a couple hours. Or your weekly, are there a couple things in the week that you can do that fill you up? Daily, is it, that cup of tea in the afternoon, or kids rest time? And soul rest, where are you finding that? And then her last point said to be kind to yourself. And that's a great reminder. We can be very hard on ourselves. One of the takeaways, which I thought is really a great thought to leave you all with, is to reflect on who you are becoming and celebrate it. So as you think through maybe your journey so far with homeschooling, think about who you're becoming and how you've grown, and celebrate that. Because I know for me, I've been growing and learning as much as any of my kids. And my patience I've grown in patience so much over the years. My husband has even noticed it when I think, the more chaos, the more kids, the more challenges, like I've had to grow. And so to look back on those things where you've grown and be happy, like, we can focus on our flaws and how we're not enough, or we can look at the things that are going well. So that's the brief summary of her points. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts specifically to those? We could also kind of talk about that, like her, what matters. If you have thought through, for you, have you named some of the things that really matter for you? Or are there any things, I don't know, in that you're like, oh yeah, I do that, or I have some ideas on how that can be applied, then we can learn from each other.
I was going to share, Catherine, that as you guys know, we recently moved here, and this fall is kind of designated as a home sort of overhaul for us, and just kind of getting back on the same page. And I was really torn about turning down a client that would have been a really easy birth for me to attend. And it was just so hard because I never say no to my work, because I really enjoy it a lot. And it was just, so this felt really affirming that just really needing to be completely focused for this season before kind of adding more to the mix feels like a really great way to kind of embrace where I'm at, like you were saying, in this season. So, and this is just a side note, but there's a book that we read that we're rereading this fall called Belonging and Becoming. And it's all about figuring out your family's purpose and how you guys can work as a unit towards that, which we found to be really helpful in the past. So we're going to check it out again.
That is wonderful. It was delightful to hear you all share the things you were looking forward to this year. And I just want to remind you that those things that delight you in homeschool are really important. Those are your genius things. So don't feel guilty if you end up reading an extra, 30 minutes because the kids want you to. Be a genius at these things that delight your family that you're doing as a school.
Catherine, would you suggest this as a keeper book, a book to purchase and then underline and go through again, or have you given us all the gems that are there?
I would suggest it as a maybe get from the library or a Kindle version. And what I did was I wrote down in a notebook the things that I thought I wanted to remember and keep, because I mean, as you probably heard, there were some sections which I felt like really spoke to me more. So I would probably, if you have my problem with full bookshelves and you want to know if it's worth buying, maybe start with borrowing it or something. That would be my advice.
Or maybe McKay's.
Mhm.
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have to go, but I really like this advice, and this group seems like it's going to be a great thing. And I was thinking to apply two of the pieces of advice, like accepting your season and deciding once. Like maybe you can have a timeline for when you decide what season you're in and not like change it every day. You know, if there's an extra client call or an extra chance to bake brownies or whatever, like it seems like my mind in its imagination could say, well, I'm out of that season. The house is fully organized. And then it's not really quite so. But it's been a blessing to see everybody. Have a great homeschool year.
Thanks, Nicole.
And actually, I think of Nicole and one of the lazy genius things, that there are certain things in our homeschool that we each do better. And, you know, music is something that Nicole is a genius about, and her kids, you see it, but that's not going to be for every family. And so that is, that's helpful too, because I think we can definitely try to do too much. I don't know many homeschool moms who don't find times in their lives where they need to cut back and say no to some things and kind of focus in, because there's always a new curriculum and a new program and a new activity. And you think, oh, if I just do that, my kids will be so much better, or they're missing out because I'm not like this. And so, but yes. Nicole has some great strengths in her homeschool.
So thank you for the encouragement. Yes, I agree. You got to kind of balance it. Like you can't expect to be a genius in everything all the time. Thank you, guys.
Wow.
I would love maybe to hear anybody want to share their thoughts on what they feel like matters the most, especially some of the veteran homeschool moms. I know Joyce and Linda, you can look back on homeschooling, having a bunch of kids who've gone through it. When you look back, what do you say is this is what mattered, this is what I wish I had remembered more, or perspective I could have had?
That's a really good question. And I have been mentoring some moms who have a lot of children. We had 9, and so that's kind of my niche as a mentor. But what I realized, all of us at some point in homeschool are overwhelmed, especially when your oldest is about 6. I have just noticed it's very overwhelming. But when I look back over the large picture, I realized even though there were deficiencies in our school, all of our children were well educated. So the time that I spent obsessing and worrying about, oh, have I done math right, or is it the right curriculum or whatever, was really wasted time. So I would just encourage all of you not to worry about the details. Your children, if they forget to learn what a comma is in 3rd grade, they'll learn it in a minute in 5th grade. So just think of the big picture, and the most valuable, I think, is that quality and quantity time that you have together with your children. There's nothing that can replace it. And the time you spend reading or just talking about the things you've read are so valuable. And that's what my children tell me they remember about school. They may not remember the Latin declensions or how to do certain algebra functions, but that time you can never replace. And so that's a day well spent. I just want to encourage you all.
Linda, do you have anything that you would say?
Only that play is really important. Allowing your children to play, playing with them. I know that the academics they're key, but there just needs to be a lot of time when they're not sitting in their seats working on things, but just giving them lots and lots of time for imagination, games, and I guess that would be my goal, is to allow our kids to, and also then to let them do what they can. Like, don't seem to be in control of their learning, but allow them to do what they can and then walk alongside and help them in where they are lacking. If that makes any sense at all, that would be my advice. Let the older ones be involved in the education of the younger ones, because they will absolutely learn. It will get inside of them when they are teaching others. I think that's enough to go on with, I think.
That's really good. Her concept of batching is also useful to some of you with multiple ages. If you can batch some of your subjects, it does help. So in our family, we had a group time in the morning where we did some of the things together that were more oral in nature, like reciting poetry together, memorizing scripture, or reviewing geography facts. And then we split up for some of the subjects that are more grade dependent, like math or language arts. But batching might be a useful concept for those of you with multiple ages. Just think about it.
That, Joyce, that's all that kind of I was planning, because I thought there's probably some other questions or topics for this.
Yes. Well,
I'll
because
put this
yes.
topic in. We can keep the ideas going on the Facebook group. I would love, I've had a couple of conversations with homeschool moms this week about just setting up a good rhythm in our home and schedules. So I'm going to post that on our group. And if anyone wants to take a picture and share, like, you know, here's what our day looks like, that can be a fun way for us to keep encouraging each other with ideas to help simplify and organize things, so that we can, again, because the purpose is not the organizing the system, the purpose is so that we can be present with our kids and enjoy them and have peace in our homes. So this conversation can continue.
Good. That is wonderful. Well, because it's also back to school, I did want to open the forum for any kind of nitty-gritty questions that people had, or something they're excited about that they wanted to share. So are there things that you came today thinking, I'd like to run this by the group? So feel free to
Well,
share.
I just wanted to share, I found this new umbrella school. I don't know if it's new or not, but it's called Honor School of Tennessee. And what's nice about them is that their rates are per family and not per child. So they have 3 different rates. One is 60, one is 40, and one is $20. And I did $20 because I don't have anybody in high school. I don't need any transcripts. I don't really need anything. And so the $20 covered our entire family. And I was with Aaron Academy last year. And when I went to sign up this year, the price was $210 for 3 kids. So that was a huge difference in price. So I wanted to put this out there. They didn't ask me for anything. They didn't care what curriculum I did. They didn't care about our vaccinations. I didn't have to submit any exemptions. I just had to give our kids names and the previous school we were enrolled with, and that was pretty much it.
That is useful. And for those of you who aren't in Tennessee, umbrella schools still have a place in high school. So you may want to think about it when your kids will someday need a transcript. They can be very useful. So keep that idea in the back of your mind. Robin, we're so glad you came.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really helpful, especially what one of you was just saying about, Joyce, what you said about not worrying and focusing on the moment and being present and not what the eventual outcome is going to be, because it was a waste of time. I think I really needed to hear that today, especially as a new homeschool mom. So thank you so much. And thank you, ladies.
That's great. Thanks. Yay.
I have a quick question, if that's okay. So last year was our first year homeschooling, and
Oops, we lost you, Liz. It muted on you.
sorry about that. Okay, so it's our first year homeschooling, and a lot of things went much better than expected, but one thing that I didn't expect was the kids, after being in the house together all year, were really getting sick of each other. Like, they weren't used to that. They were used to being at school, and then they'd see each other. And I have a 11-year-old girl, a 9-year-old boy, and a 5-year-old girl. And by the end of the year, like, I feel like their relationships were actually worse. Even though they did learn, my oldest and my middle did learn how to play with each other in nice ways, they also were like really just sick of each other. Just being in each other's space all the time. And I can understand that, like, it was COVID, so they didn't get out as much, but I did actually set up a ton of play dates for them. So they had their individual time. So I just wanted to see what you guys thought about that. I mean, I didn't know how to address that, like, just fatigue of spending so much time together. And she is a preteen, so I mean, it was really more my oldest getting sick of my middle, and my younger, she is, about to be a teenager. So there's that.
It's just so common. One thing my husband noticed is he thought it was good for our kids to have to work through all these problems with each other. He thought it was very healthy. We had one room with 4 girls and one room with 5 boys, and they had to work through a lot. But he felt that it prepared them for real life, because when you grow up, you have to be cordial and work out problems with other people. You can't, just have a tantrum. So even though it's hard, I will just say it's a benefit. And we did have lots of interactions with other kids. That just enriched our kids' lives.
Yeah. I mean, I've been leaning towards just making her change her behavior, because she'll like roll her eyes or just act kind of like obnoxious towards him. But I actually want her heart to change, not just her behavior. So I want to be careful how I do that.
Yes. Yeah. I've had a lot of kids that had even like a particular, like when they got to be 11, they started kind of either needing to be the boss or just feeling like they were too old for this.
Yeah.
And one story that worked out really well is I took the 11-year-old and the younger sister on a trip together. And by the end of the trip, they had bonded. It was a problem relationship that just totally changed. And I don't know if, just like if there's a problem relationship, just taking those two out to dinner or spending some time together, but they do grow out of it. But it's one of those things, I agree, you want the heart, not just the behavior. And sometimes it just takes time.
Liz, my kids are pretty close to that age. I have a 13-year-old girl and an 11-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl, and then little guys. But I would address it with her directly, because I think that's common at that age, where they start to feel a struggle, especially with a girl and then a boy. Is that what your gender? Yeah. So she's starting to like become a young lady and change. So she's a little scoffing, but then she wants that's the peer in the house, but she also knows she's older. So we had to just kind of straight on address it like, you're older than them. So there's things that you're better at, so you can't brag. And then there's things that you're going to be impatient with them. They're going to annoy you because they're doing it like little kids, but you're starting to feel more grown up, but you're still a child. It's a little bit of a transition period. So like, also my daughter, when she was, the girls are 4 years apart, and they have a friend who is right at their brother's age, who's a girl. And up until about my daughter turning 11, my daughter was friends with the friend who was 9. And then right when she hit 11, she didn't want to play. She wanted to sit with the moms and talk. And so the 9-year-old became friends with my daughter, who at that point was 7. And now they're still friends, but that friend's 11 now. And I can see it. She'll play with my daughter. My daughter's 9. She thinks she's so grown up. She tries. But the friend is kind of drifting a little. And I think there's something about girls, it's like they're not totally there, but puberty's coming in. Now my son is 11. It's coming out in different ways, but he's very aggressive and controlling. Like, he decided he's the man of, there's only sisters, he's the man of the house now. And I'm like, the man of the house means you get to kill the bug when daddy's gone. It doesn't mean you get to come and like act like you're my husband or their father. Like, you don't get to tell mommy what to do. You don't get to reprimand your sister. So anyway, I don't know if that helps at all, but I just think some of this is like the new age season that they're coming into. But also, it sounds like you're already doing play dates and stuff. Like, we found a little time with friends, peers, youth event was helpful, but not a ton. Like, you have to kind of dig in. These are the people you're with. I have told my kids some stories about roommate situations in college and after college to kind of help them see that, like, you have to share this room with a sibling, or you have to eat meals with these family members. And you're learning right now how to be a good roommate, so you don't drive people crazy. You can tell them some horror stories. Like, we can tell them horror stories. That kind of help them see that, like, this is a lifelong problem, not just a, like, right in this moment, my sibling is annoying me. So
another thing, and this is more Joyce advice that she probably doesn't realize that she had shared. I know that they did a good job of having some privileges that were age-based. It was like bedtime. You know, older kids got to stay up a little later with mom and dad. And it's when you have all the kids together, in a lot of ways for us, it's easier to just batch them. And you kind of just want, like, okay, now you all go to bed and it's mom and dad time, or whatever it is. But sometimes that can be part of the struggle. I mean, it can turn, when you give privileges to the older kids, it can turn into a, you know, kind of nasty thing, but between them and rubbing it, you know, just kind of shoving in other people's face. But that can also, I think that's one of the challenges of homeschooling. I know I feel like I don't get a lot of one-on-one time with my kids. And every time I think, like, oh, I should take them on dates. And then I'm like, but then there's how many that I need to get on dates, and then how am I going to do this, and who's with the other kids? It can be hard when you have a lot of kids and when they're home with you, to get them one-on-one, or to treat them. There was a quote, someone, I don't remember what it was from, but she said, you know, your kids, they present themselves to you en masse, but you can bet they see themselves, they feel an individual. So they feel themselves as the individual, but you're seeing the whole chaos of it and all the dynamics. So I know bedtime thing was something in the McPherson household, but there might be other ways like that that could help.
Along those lines, I have an almost 9-year-old daughter, so I'm not there. But I went recently grocery shopping with just her, and I was like blown away by how helpful and how much that mattered to her. Like, that was essentially, like, I would have overthought it and been like, we need to plan a date or like kind of reconnect sort of thing. And it was just really that simple to kind of integrate her and I in a way that it was just us, because the other kids were going to bed. And anyway, just to say, I think those little moments of connection wherever they are in your life that you can sort of maximize, I really do think that adds up, because to me, it's always a heart issue, like you were saying. And I think we all know as moms. And yeah, so I don't know. I just was like, wow, I felt like I got to know you better. And I had no idea that I was like missing out on this part of you that doesn't come out when you're with your siblings.
One of the things that I would think about is how to allow our kids to express negative emotions, so that they don't stuff it down and end up needing therapy in 20 years. And I say this as a person who has experienced, you know, really wanted our kids. We just really wanted our kids to be happy. And so there are consequences to that. So I just advise you to help your kids channel all of their emotions into ways that are appropriate and acceptable. But definitely allow them to express what is inside them, so that they're able to know that they can become healthy people who experience those negative emotions and can take them somewhere to a healthy place.
I just wanted to add that my kids are also the same ages, and my 11-year-old is a boy, so it's little different dynamics. Same as Rochelle, aggressive, annoys my middle, who's a girl. And what I have found is to give them a task that they have to work on something together. The first time they had to do that, I think I said, you have to go for a walk holding hands and talk it out. And I could hear them down the street screaming at each other. And then now I found, my husband found that they like making fire. So we've given them the task of collecting tinder and starting a fire, and you can see they're angry at first. They're going around picking up all these sticks and stuff, but then towards the end they've talked it out and they're working through that task, and the relationship comes together. So I feel like giving them something to do and work at it together, they have time to process that emotion.
That's really good.
Along Linda, what you were saying really resonated with me. My oldest is a girl, and then my son is almost 7, and I can tell, I think because she's the oldest, she took on a lot of responsibility for him as he was getting older. And I think her school this last year actually did a beautiful job, and it was really convicting, and just, again, everything you're saying really resonates with me. But I almost feel like it's also unique when your oldest is the one that you're working stuff out with, because they do kind of carry this additional weight just by default of being in their family placement. So yeah, I don't know if that resonates. I forget, Liz, with you and your situation, but I think in some ways I guess, sorry, I'm talking in circles, but what I'm getting at is, like, I think Marin, my oldest, learning boundaries with her younger siblings was also something I had to kind of help her with, because she naturally is very like caring and sensitive to their needs, and sort of helping her realize she didn't have to say yes and then get frustrated with being in a situation she wasn't wanting to be in to begin with. Anyway.
That's good. And I wonder, does anyone have questions about like curriculum or just challenges that you're facing as you start the school year? Is there anything that you want to ask?
I would like how everybody has smoother mornings, because I feel like my mornings with like getting breakfast and doing all the stuff and just getting ready, and it just, like, the whole day it seems like I don't know, in a rush to like finish everything. Maybe that's my problem. I'm trying to figure out how to finish everything throughout the day. I need to be able to like let go, and I just want calmer mornings. I don't know. I don't know if there's a question in there, but
Does anybody else I feel like as I've looked at the schedule, it's just like I have to wake up. I keep having to push my wake up time. Like I need to wake up so early if I want to, have some time to pray and coffee before kids wake up, or exercise or get breakfast. I don't know. I keep feeling like what time I might as well just wake up at 4 a.m, because then I might be ready when school starts.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Because I feel like everything, it's just a rush in the morning, and I just can't get there to like have a peaceful morning.
I might have something good. We changed our start time to 9 o'clock. We don't start school until after all the dishes are done, the breakfast stuff is cleaned up. We have a very casual morning. That's really helped us. I hope I'm not so muted.
You're on. You're good.
Oh, good. Okay.
That's good advice.
Well, one thing that I come back to a lot is like try to remember that there's some advantages to being homeschoolers, and that's that we get to set our start time, we get to set our schedule. And it's really easy for us to put these expectations on us and put ourselves in a box of like, oh, well, school needs to start at this time with the school bell. This is how it's supposed to look. And when we let go of some of those things that are our greatest perks in homeschooling that let us be flexible, we just limit ourselves and miss out on some of the advantages. Like being able to start at 9 instead of having to, rush out the door at 7:45 or something. So that is helpful. I still, starting at 9 makes it hard for me to get everything in for us, but yeah.
So
How long is your school day, Catherine?
It's varied. We used to get everything done before lunch. And for the first time this year, we're gonna have a little bit in the afternoon, but that's because with the baby, we're just there's more kind of breaks we have when she has her morning nap school, and then some independent work, and when she has her afternoon nap school, because trying to teach and help other kids with her is a bit of a
And are your kids
now.
are they on board with that? Are they like, have you walked that through with them so that they have that expectation?
Yeah, I think so. We'll see when we really get going. I tried to explain, kind of show them what was going on and why, because at first, it just looks like it means more school for them. But my older kids like independent work. They like being in control of some of their things, and if they want to do it at 7 in the morning when they wake up, do some things, they like that. And so knowing that they can get it done and play, and then it's just when the baby goes down, we might have an hour together. So I've tried to kind of walk them through it, and it'll be different. The kindergartner is also the one who's going to get more of my attention in the mornings, because she'll be done in the afternoon. So we're balancing a couple of different stages with middle school, kindergarten, and toddler. But I know I'm not the only one. I'm not the first. Others
your own expectations then, like you don't get that break in the afternoon when your baby is sleeping, because you have to be on again. So that may be why 4 o'clock in the morning in order to have some alone time. But
I like to read. I may not read as much, but it was something I put on my list, was like, I need to schedule in time. I know Rochelle is good about that, going into her room and like the sunroom with her tea and shutting the door. But sometimes we just have to.
Joyce mentioned yesterday that she would give her kids a timer, 45 minutes. If she was writing, she needed time to write. And so she would have that timer, and her kids would sit and look at that timer waiting for it to go off. But they knew that was her time to do something else. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I thought it was pretty cool that her children would watch the timer and wait for it to go off in order to come knock on her door.
We have a baby and a toddler. Well, we have a baby and a preschooler, and there's 2 nap times. And the first one we're going to use for school, and the second one, that's when I'm using the independent work. I'm like, the baby takes a nap, the preschooler takes a nap, the mommy takes a break, and then the other 3 big kids can read. So they will be reading, and they'll be enjoying the quiet to get their reading done without distractions. And then the 7-year-old is not independently reading, but she can kind of look at books, do an audiobook, just play. I'm going to bill it as play with the toys by yourself. No one's bothering you. But yeah, you do have to, Catherine, I have to say, not going to be a naysayer, but there have been years where I did that and I didn't make it through the year like that, because I just, my morning, my husband's home, my evening, my husband's home, the whole day there's kids. Like, there's no other time alone in my day unless I'm like 2 to 3 p.m. No one talks to me. Like, but you'll find what works for you.
I still have like my downtime, but it's just like letting go of it being the entire baby's nap. Is mom gets, an hour and a half, 2 hours a day to, I might need to function on 30 minutes to have a cup of tea and some quiet instead of, but that's until the baby changes her nap schedule, which then everything goes up in the air again.
I will share, Anju, I had a kind of a strategy for getting everybody started. everybody always was hungry. So we started with breakfast, and I read a book to them, and it just seemed like everyone could wake up at their own pace, or, you know, kind of get their thoughts together. And it was something they looked forward to because they wanted to find out what happened next in the book. So that kind of got us all together in there. And if there's something that your kids like, starting with it might be a way just to take out that rush and stress for beginning. But it's always there. I found when my children started graduating from homeschool, I had less and less of a job to keep everybody on track. And I thought, what is this? I don't have to say it's time to start, or it's time to finish, or it was very strange. And I'd lived like that for, 30 years. So I have a lot of empathy for where y'all are, just trying to keep everybody on track.
Along
Joyce,
those lines, oh, sorry, go ahead, Liz.
Oh, I was just going to ask Joyce, what would you do if, like, I'm assuming you woke up your kids if you were feeding them and doing it all at the same time, but like, what would you do if one of them woke up a lot earlier than the others, or like if they're not all on the same wake up schedule?
Yes, we had some older kids who woke up early, and they would do their school early like Catherine's did. And they always felt good that they finished school earlier. When I had very, little ones, like 2-year-olds who woke up early, which sometimes I did, I would usually have one of the early risers spend time with them, just kind of supervise them until such time as I was available. I usually have my devotions before everybody wakes up. So that's one of those tricky things. But I think y'all are super moms, and I think you're doing a wonderful job. So if you find that you're overwhelmed, talk to your husband about it and just say, I can hardly breathe. There's just so much we have to do, or I'm so stressed. And just think about what's really important. I'm glad Catherine shared about this book, because a lot of times our expectations just grow and grow. We even go to group meetings like this and come away with another thing to do, and then it becomes deadly. So be careful, and just if you are starting to feel stressed, talk to your husband about it, talk to a friend about it, or your mentor, and make a plan, because really homeschool should be a delight for you as a mom. So just remember that. We do a lot to try to make our kids happy, but it's also, as Catherine said, it really is something we really enjoy. So anyway, well, I want to thank you all for coming today, and I hope that you will contact others in the group, mentors or friends, just to keep encouraging each other. And we will have, in a month, we'll have another gathering. And if anyone is interested in sharing some rich information with us, just let me know, because that was a real blessing, Catherine, to have your insights on this book. That was really great. So thank you all, and I will be in touch. Yeah.